Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. Let's play What's Wrong with Your LDRC out of the box. So, I really like this car. I'm not dumping on it. Don't get all upset. But let's face it, the biggest problem is that from the factory, things are not always perfect. Big thing on mine. The front suspension arms, the spacer is supposed to be on this side. It was on the other side, which gives you a whole bunch of caster that you do not want. So how do you fix that? Take your bulkhead out. 2 screws on top, 4 screws on the bottom, comes right out. Detach your little link ends. Life is good. I just use an Allen wrench. Push out the pin. Mine's a little bit loose right now because I didn't push it back in super tight. Slide it out. Move your spacer. Put it back together. Life is good. And then just press that baby back in. I wouldn't go quite as far as it was stock. Just make sure that it's holding. And then put that front end back together. Check to make sure everything is moving nicely. So you see, it could be a hair looser. I didn't bother. Works fine. The front end is actually pretty stiff. The spring is fairly strong, so not the end of the world. If it's just a hair on the sticky side, that'll probably loosen up as you drive it. Check all your moving parts, all your ends. Make sure that they're not sticking. Very, very important. Bearings. Mine were quite loose, as you can see now. Oops, not much play there, just a little bit. There was more. Spins reasonably freely. I used a little bit of B7000. It's kind of a rubber cement type of glue, just a tiny little bit to hold those bearings in place. I was going to use some Teflon tape on the little spinny on the stub shaft, but I couldn't find my regular Teflon tape. All I could find was pipe fitting tape, and that stuff is too thick, so that is not going to happen right this second. More importantly, really common failing on this car, the back end is drooped. Sitting, it bottoms out and the wheels rub on the wheel arches. Mine, the problem was one side was very, very stuck. Like, it was ridiculous. Okay, this side right here. And as you can see now, no problem. This side, no problem. Moves nicely. That's what you need. So, the problem on mine was, again, the top arm. It was super, super stiff. All I did, I took out this board so I could get a good grip on it, supported this end right here, used my finger, held it very, very firmly, pushed out this pin. You're going to want to be careful. Here's the problem. The knurled end is this end again, the outside end, both sides. If you want to do it right, take out the transmission, take it apart, pop the motor off, so you can push it out the right direction. But as you can see, the motor is in the way. Now you can push this pin out. You're pushing the knurling through the arm and through the other side. It actually went through the arm fairly easily. I was really surprised. It was only really stuck in here. So it's doable. I don't recommend that. I didn't know where the knurling was. That's why I did it. There you go. You can learn from my mistakes. Now it does work reasonably well. What I did, I sanded down the spacer a little bit so that it's no longer sticking. Now this could be a little bit better, but this is literally as good as I could get it. Like this back end is a bit of a nuisance. Alright, now the other thing on mine, the toe link on this side was also binding. I used an X-Acto knife and just trimmed out a tiny little bit of the gearbox so that it doesn't bind. In these cars, they're drifting is very finicky. You don't want anything binding. This end could not move. It was binding. It was stuck, right? It is what it is. This end was fine. This one wasn't. So I fixed that. Then there was another problem, is that the range of motion was not 100% the same, and this arm did not want to go down quite as far as the other one. I'm not sure which one is right, which one is wrong, but in my world you want them to be roughly the same. I did a little bit of fiddling with the droop stop. It's hard to see right there. That's what stops it from going down any further. I did a little fiddling trying to clean that up a little bit. Not super successful. These arms are in there really, really tight. I tried getting them off so I could play with that a little bit more. I didn't want to break it, so I stopped there. This seems to be reasonably good. The car drifts much better now. The other problem my rear end has, yeah, I know, there's a pun there. No pun intended. The other problem my rear end has is this spring that is your suspension, that is your shocks. Yeah, we'll just leave that right side up. This spring, 100%, I am totally convinced, was softer on the side that was causing me problems. Why? I don't know. Like, it's a spring. It's a piece of spring steel. It should be the same. It looks very, very similar. It's hard to tell the difference. What I tried to do was bend it just a little bit to get a little more spring action on that weak side, because you want it to be symmetrical. And I had limited success. I don't know where you can buy these. This is the one part I don't think you can get. I'd love to buy a new one, because like I said, I'm all but certain that it's actually not quite 100%, unfortunately. If you know, stab a link in the comments, but I don't think you can get that part. So again, I piddled with it a little bit. I'm going to put this back together. I have it in pieces so I could show you what's going on. It drives much, much better. I'm going to slap a little video on the end. Now, in the process of playing with this, I did install a radio link receiver to go with my radio link radio and a cheap brush DSC with a JST connector attached to the motor. It lets you bypass the stock electronics and run an aftermarket radio. I would say with the built-in gyro on this receiver, not that much better, if it's better at all. It's a toss-up. Once I got the suspension working, that stock radio works pretty well in my opinion. So is it perfect? No, absolutely not. It's not a world beater. I paid $60 Canadian for this car. That's about $40 US. You're not going to get a world beater for that price. But without a doubt, there are guys doing better. But driving is a factor. Driving skill, without a doubt, is a factor. This went from doing very big clockwork movements without me doing anything, the gyro correcting for, big wobbly type issues because of the poor suspension, to what you see in the attached footage, basically pretty smooth. So that's my 2 cents worth. If you guys have an LDRC and you fixed something that was wrong from the factory, stab up a video, share. Let's try and get these little cars working perfect, and hopefully motivate the company to send them out just a hair better, just a little bit. Because boy oh boy, when you get it working good, it's a pretty good car. When it doesn't work well, not the greatest. Oh, and by the way, the surface that I'm running on is not as flat as it needs to be. It's an old projector screen turned upside down, and it's got some little dipsy doodles in it that affect this car pretty drastically. If you run on a nice proper drift surface, a drift mat on a very, very flat surface, this car will 100% drive as well as it possibly can. That's my tip for you. Thanks for tuning in to Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive? See you next time.